All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to Devil's Been Talking Radio. And this is actually our first show that we are doing on video today. So this is something new for us. And we're doing this with Mr. Ulrich today. You guys, a lot of you gave us a lot of positive feedback on Mr. Ulrich. And actually, he prefers I call him Leonard. So Leonard Ulrich. Everybody, we got a lot of positive feedback on our last podcast with Leonard. And what I enjoy about his research and what I'm hoping to do today, which we accidentally did a false intro with no recording there. I felt so bad. So I'm just repeating what we were talking about is we wanted to, I wanted to put together, for those of you who listen to a lot of podcasts, which I fear that I listen to too many, you hear a lot about Bitcoin, blockchain, the NWO. And I feel like a lot of podcasters do a disservice to what's really going on. There is not a lot of solid research, a lot of solid information. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of ideas going around about what the technology is going to be used for. And I'm not even sure that I quite understand everything that's going on with blockchain and Bitcoin myself. So what I was hoping to do with my co-host Chuck here, my handy dandy sidekick, my main hombre, is along with Leonard, talk about Bitcoin, blockchain, and how it ties together with the NWO, NWO, and if there is really any kind of tie. How do all those things relate? Because on the surface of it, blockchain is a type of it's a type of computing software that is being utilized more and more, and then Bitcoin is a type of basically like a baseless, type of currency that doesn't really have value as of itself unless the consumer puts a value on it. Last time I checked, it was 13 G's for one Bitcoin. That was the last time I checked. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, well, it's supposedly raising value, and right now, you could almost say that about the American dollar right now too, since we went away from gold standard. But anyway, yes.
Way to bring it back to the USA.
Yeah, and I've got a coworker who's trying to purchase a share of Bitcoin right now. So I mean, you have to buy. It almost sounds like you were back in the old West, where you can actually cut a coin in half and actually spend it.
Yeah.
Like a dollar coin, you cut it in half, and you have a $50 that you can actually spend somewhere. That's almost how it sounds like with the Bitcoin right now.
Huh. Yeah, there we go. So, and then how do all that, and that's really what I want to talk about is, so blockchain's really big, Bitcoin's really big, and then any of you in conspiracy theory land and podcast land, wants to tie this back to the NWO. What I want to do with Leonard today and with Chuck is, if there's a connection, identify it, and if it does go back to the NWO, how does it get there? And so with that, our guest, Leonard Ulrich, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, and I hope you can hear and see me no problem. Yeah. Hopefully I'm not overpowering everything. This is the first time. This is the first time where I am broadcasting live through an HDMI internet connected camera. So if you see me reaching for cables and so on, looking at a screen, you know what's going on. Everything here is live, and that is exactly how I like it, because this will reduce my post-processing time by about 4. So this should be up and running within 24 to 36 hours after I finish recording it. Let me just double check something here. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that. Like I said, everything is live. Okay, let me give you the ultimate conclusion to our conversation up front, then define terms so we know what we're talking about, and then go through the material. How about that?
Let's do it. What do you think?
Okay.
Should do it?
Okay. Here is the grand conclusion I have reached in the past 4 months. And I'm so thankful that I have been forced to look at Bitcoin, the blockchain, and figure out what that is going to mean for our lives. And I was intentionally ignoring it. I heard about it 2 years ago, but I said, well, it won't be significant. Boy, was I wrong. And releasing my second feature film, The Illusion of Money in the New World Order series, would have been a grand mistake. Okay, so here is the ultimate conclusion to our discussion up front. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, the blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, 5 and 6G wireless internet connections, biotech and nanotech are all combining to provide mankind with the strong delusion mentioned in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And what is that strong delusion? Ye shall be as gods, ye shall surely not die. The lie from the Garden of Eden has not changed, and that is exactly how history is going to close out. And I, in my opinion, truly believe that we are in the last 1% of human history. So I think we should act on that knowledge because time is short. So that's my grand conclusion. And now let's define some terms.
It's funny
First
because I was on Google Plus, and I have a bunch of groups that I post to on Google Plus, which I've been moving away from them, and I've been moving away from Facebook because it's my personal opinion and belief that they do not uphold free speech, but only censored speech. And I've been unable to post my podcast the way that I wanted to because of the fact that they censor it and consider it fake news. And so because of that, I've moved away from there and started going on to something named minds.com, which their big thing is that they believe in free speech. So I was talking to some people on Google trying to get them, hey, you should check this out. And this one guy posts, that we are going to create technology that eventually will become God. And my question, and this kind of goes into what you were saying with the 5G and the 6G and all this stuff and the grand illusion that we shall become as gods. My question is, can something rightly call itself God when it has been created? That's my question.
Well, that almost sounds like a self-answering question.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, that's me right there. I mean, if you're created, how the heck did you even possibly think you could be a god of any sort?
Right.
Yeah, so, right. So,
But again, this is all about the strong delusion. We are talking about deceivers who have themselves been deceived.
absolutely.
Right. So with that in mind, let's just define 4 or 5 terms. Number 1, Bitcoin. What is it? Bitcoin is the dominant cryptocurrency. Bitcoin currently has almost half of the market share of over 1,200 cryptocurrencies. So what is a cryptocurrency? Well, a cryptocurrency is an electronic currency that is based on the blockchain. Now, what is the blockchain? The blockchain is a computer-based distributed ledger technology where everyone involved in a database sees the entire database, which is updated in real time to all parties. The blockchain may be considered monitored digital DNA. Now I need to explain that. In your body, you have DNA. Every single cell of your body contains this code called DNA, which not only describes and regulates the function of that particular cell, could be a liver cell, skin cell, whatever, but also contains all the instructions for every other cell in your body. It is a form of distributed ledger technology. And some people still think that evolution is a scientific theory, where we came from nothing. Well, that violates the first principle of scientific theory. Okay, you can't get something from nothing, period. All right. So the whole analogy or comparison with monitored digital DNA to biological DNA still stands. Now, Joseph, let's say you were interested in buying my house and you really wanted to buy it and you wanted to buy it this week. Well, even if your funds and my intentions were 100% sincere, you trying to buy my house would be about a 1 to 2 month process, because we need a banker, we need a real estate agent typically, we need, in my case, the City of Winnipeg Land Titles Office notary, you name it, okay? So we typically need a banker, lawyer, real estate agent, notary, and that's a complicated process. All that is necessary because let's say I wasn't too scrupulous and I had a chimney fire in my house and I just patched it up, and you didn't know that the chimney obviously needs to be replaced, and that's a basement foundation to through the roof operation of $20,000, which is the whole reason why I wanted to sell my house in the first place. Right. Okay. So, and if I was really nasty, I could pretend to own my own home when in fact I'm just filling in for somebody that I might not even know. Okay. And then sell the house to my bank account. And then let's say the family that really owns this home, who were on a 2-month vacation, shows up and says, Joseph, what are you doing in our home? Right? This has happened before. So this is why selling a home, which is typically the biggest purchase that most people make, is a complicated 1 to 2 month process. Now, what if Leonard Ulrich's house is on a blockchain database? Well, then you really could buy my home in a week, because the banker would look on the blockchain registry and say, yes, Leonard Ulrich owns the title to his home. Yes, Leonard Ulrich has never tried to patch up anything that is substandard according to building code. And there's no liens against the home. It's free and clear. He owns it. He can sell it. Okay. And then your banker says, yeah, okay, here are the funds. Boom. Press send. Leonard Ulrich has the funds. Okay, here's the contract. Sign your electronic signature, and the home is yours in 7 days. That's totally possible, as opposed to 1 to 2 months. I've had donors from Dubai take 5 to 7 days, I can't believe I'm saying this, to wire money through a SWIFT account to my bank account because of quote unquote terrorism and terrorist financing. Okay. It's complicated. I have to set up SWIFT bank accounts in my name for a single use only, for a single transaction only. Okay. Because the funds were significant. I'll just say that, which is exactly why I've spent unbelievable amounts of money on camera technology, but it's working.
Leonard Ulrich is a baller.
Not exactly. Okay. I'm not exactly InfoWars. Okay. I don't have pills to sell you.
Right.
All right. So it literally could have been faster for a donor to stuff a briefcase full of money, get on a series of planes, and hand me the briefcase half a world over, as opposed to wiring the money. That's the point of this illustration.
Right.
So if his bank account and my bank account linked on the blockchain, then the transaction could be done instantly. Okay, so the blockchain is a form of digital monitored DNA. Now the question is, monitored by who and for what? Well, it's monitored by a series of computers who are constantly checking for the common elements within the database. If I tried to hack into a blockchain database, the fact that only my computer is showing record X, let's say, and 300 other computers involved in that blockchain database are showing Y, then my X record gets eliminated, gets kicked out, okay? Because it doesn't agree with the other hundreds of computers in that database. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, no, go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say it does. So I was just saying yes.
So a blockchain is essentially it's a series of databases that all agree with one another in record keeping. Is that what you're saying?
That's precisely right. It is a form of distributed ledger technology, or DLT. And you have to have all the computers involved in a database agreeing on the database. Not one computer can infect the database, or it's really, really hard. That is because the group of computers that form a particular database on the blockchain are constantly changing the passcodes. It's like you trying to break into my home and the lock is changed physically every 30 seconds. Good luck with that. Okay? So the computers involved in a particular blockchain database are constantly making their own codes, so that even if I tried to hack into a blockchain database, it's next to impossible. Like, give up, all right? So I hope that makes sense. The blockchain is a form of distributed ledger technology and can be considered monitored digital DNA.
So let's go back to your house illustration for a second here. Okay, so buying a house sucks. We'll just put it out there. It totally sucks. And the reason why it sucks is because of the fact of all the paperwork and all the verification that you have to go through in your illustration. And so what we're saying what you're saying is the reason why putting your house on a blockchain would be so much quicker, and I could go from a 2-month process because I'm like, I really want this house, and then but instead of waiting that 2 months, the reason why it would take me a week is because it pretty much eliminates 9 out of 10 of the verifications I would need because of the blockchain itself being so reliable. Would that be correct?
That is correct, right. And
All right.
every revolution has caused certain occupations to go out of business. Okay? Candle makers aren't where they were 150 years ago. Lawyers won't be where they are now in 10 to 20 years from now.
A lot of people are probably praising Jesus for that.
Exactly. Yeah. Why do they bury lawyers 8 feet deep? Well, it's because deep down they're really nice people.
Right?
I have not heard that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Okay, so now I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes on quantum computing because it's really complicated, and I'm going to employ all my teaching techniques to describe it.
Go for it.
Because, yeah, it is, honestly, it's like the invention of the wheel. Okay, we went from the steam-powered revolution of the 1800s to the electrical revolution of the early 1900s to the computer revolution of the 1950s. And now in the 21st century, we are entering the quantum revolution. And I find it ironic that a lot of people have emailed and messaged me saying, oh, Leonard, it's all fake. The quantum revolution's totally fake. Don't you know? And I say, yeah, that's what they said about the horseless carriage back in the 1880s. Okay?
They'll never catch
Right.
on.
It'll never catch on. Right. what's this internet thing? It's just a fad, right?
And was some guy named Al Gore? Didn't he invent?
Did he invent the internet? You know what else is a fad? Breathing air.
Yeah. Al Gore's mind is filled with a lot of hot air, and that's why he's advocating climate change.
Right.
Okay.
Glaciers that were supposed to be gone by now are still there.
Yeah, exactly. Al Gore's a rapist, by the way. I'm being deadly serious. I'm deadly serious.
I'm laughing because I can see your face when you say it. You look so serious.
Oh yeah, and I'm not surprised. Of course, he won't be called out on that though, because he's got the Clintons behind him. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a home in South Carolina with an Olympic-sized heated swimming pool, and the house consumes, I think, 12 times standard American house power consumption. It's just ridiculous. Then he gets on a private plane and flies to and from wherever, telling us about our carbon footprint. Well, that's because he wants to be the high priest of the carbon exchange, period. And we need to pay our carbon indulgences to people like him. Yeah. He wants to be the first carbon billionaire. And if we're stupid enough, then we're going to let him be the first carbon billionaire.
And while we're on this side tangent, what's so amazing to me is how many people, well-meaning people, by the way, who are truly concerned about the environment are being taken advantage of by this false science and being put out there to advocate for, without even realizing it, the high priest of carbon, Al Gore himself. They're being taken advantage of, and he's just using them and using them, and they don't even know they're being used. And then once they're done being used, he's just gonna wad them up and throw them away like a piece of trash.
Exactly.
And
that's right.
That's what the whole green agenda is. And the green agenda is now basically fading. And now it's going over to other agendas that are just as destructive.
They use alarmism to do it too. Oh, the world's going to explode because we're using, burning too much gasoline.
The same people who are preaching to us about burning too much carbon are the same people who are holding back a whole bunch of technologies that would eliminate that. Automobiles are still using 140-year-old technology. I think it's about time we got beyond that. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, with that in mind, because we got to keep on
point.
Yeah, we got to keep on point because.
That was my fault on that one with Al Gore.
No, that's all right. All right, Jamie. This is a 2-hour conversation. I got so much to go through. Okay. First of all, let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully this will come up. All right. Quantum computing versus conventional computing. Can you read that?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. And please stop me whenever something is a little bit vague. I spent about 2 hours writing one page because I literally tried to understand what this is in layman's terms. Here we go. The diameter of an atom is about 0.1 to 0.5 nanometers, or about 1 million times smaller than the thickness of the thickest human hair. Not all the atoms of an element are identical, even in the same state. The latest Intel Core i7 circuitry thickness has shrunk from 22 nanometers to 14 nanometers. The smallest circuit possible for a conventional computer would not be much less than 1 nanometer across or 2 atoms wide because of potential defects in circuitry and heat. The moment you have a circuit that is 1 atom wide, you have a quantum computer. We are coming to the end of Moore's Law, where computing power has doubled every 18 months for the past 50 years. A conventional computer relies on a two-dimensional field of up to millions of transistors to perform calculations. Those transistors, or bits, can be on or off, 1 or 0, in a binary computer system. A quantum computer relies on a three-dimensional matrix of up to thousands of atoms, or qubits, held in place by supercooling and magnetic fields. A quantum computer is revolutionary because it can not only spin this three-dimensional fixed matrix of atoms up or down to get a 1 or a 0, but in any direction necessary. Okay, do you follow that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just two possibilities, it's hundreds of possibilities per qubit. Quantum computers based on a three-dimensional fixed matrix of atoms spinning in hundreds of different directions are therefore hundreds of times more powerful than conventional two-dimensional computers whose circuits are either on or off. Then I go through the steam power revolution, electrical revolution, artificial intelligence, biotech, and nanotech revolution. And then I come up with this. We are in the early days of the quantum computer revolution, where it is uncertain that quantum computing performance is superior to conventional computing performance. Then again, that's what was said about horses and the first horseless carriages, which we now call cars. The quantum computing revolution is not all fake. It is just the beginning. And finally, quantum computer performance grows exponentially with the number of qubits involved. A grouping of 8 bits or 8 transistors was a historical standard necessary to store 1 byte of information or 1 character of text. In contrast, an 8-qubit quantum computer can produce 256 characters of text. In fact, the performance formula of a quantum computer is 2 to the nth power, where n is the number of qubits involved. D-Wave is expected to release their 4096 model in 2018. So I just wrote a little mathematical formula here. You could use your smartphone to solve this problem. 3 times 7 times 47 is 987. Whoop-de-doo, that's grade 5 math. Okay, but I'm going to give you another related question. What is the 3-integer or whole number factorization matrix of 987?
I think that question itself just blew my mind.
Right.
So.
That's right. Okay, in other words, what combination of 3 whole numbers, or let me back up. How many combinations of 3 whole numbers can multiply by themselves to give me 987? That's totally different. For example, 1 times 1 times 47 is, 47. 1 times 23 times 47 is 987. Okay, that's one possible answer of hundreds of combinations of answers.
Right.
Right. Now, here is what you use a quantum computer for. Let's say, I'm going to turn off my screen share here. Let us say, and how do I do that? Okay, stop sharing. There we go. Let's say you own a fleet of aircraft. You want to know the answer to the following question. What is the real-time optimal distribution of all my aircraft? Keep giving me the answer.
Right.
Don't ever stop.
Don't stop till I land.
Exactly. Right? I need a plane in Dusseldorf, Germany. I need one in Chicago, Vancouver, Toronto, you name it, Miami. Okay? And now balance out the passenger loads with air currents because I have different models of planes, and calculate the optimum plane to be used based on passenger loads. I have 5 different type of aircraft. Okay, this gets really complicated, but this is what a quantum computer is useful for. good luck with your MacBook Pro on that one. Okay,
Right.
Real-time air fleet monitoring, given the factors of 5 different models of planes, maintenance schedule, traffic loads, weather patterns. I could go on. Okay, so in the past, these are questions that men would have to give, or the answers to the questions that men and women would have to give. You couldn't exactly feed all that information into a computer and get a coherent answer.
Right.
But that is changing. That's the whole point of quantum computers. So let's just keep going here. I'm sorry?
Which is where blockchain is sounding like it's coming in right there.
That's right. Okay. How can you have a proper quantum computer if all your database says aren't fed into the quantum computer in real time?
So
You can't.
the quantum computer, doesn't that 4096 stand for how many qubits it utilizes for its problems?
That's right.
Okay.
So think of 2 to the 2046th power. Okay, that's 2046 zeros. Okay, just as an exponent multiplied onto the 2. It's more grains. It's a number bigger than the number of grains of sand on planet Earth. It's insane. Okay, and quantum computing is doubling every year in terms of performance.
And for everybody that's listening and will watch this, what exactly is a qubit?
A qubit is a single atom that can spin any direction.
Yeah, I was gonna
It
say,
is held.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry? Okay.
No, no.
It is usually linked with hundreds to thousands of other atoms that are fixed in place like a Rubik's Cube. Instead of cubes, you have spheres of atoms in a matrix, 3-dimensional matrix. And they're all spinning in the same direction, but that direction is constantly changing according to the magnetic field variation which you are inducing in this supercooled environment. Now, that may sound like it's just right over your head, but it's really, really spiritually important. And here's why. We're gonna get into this. This is so deep. The people behind quantum computers, in my opinion, don't really know what they're doing all the time. They really don't. Okay? They are being helped, let's just say. Okay, and I'll prove that. They are following, knowingly or unknowingly, the doctrines of demons. And we're going to get into that. Okay, and one of those doctrines or those techniques is called geomancy. What does this have to do with quantum computers? Everything. Because in a normal computer...
Never even heard of that.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
That almost, well, the reason why I had my little facial thing there was that you got geomancy, which you can explain, but that almost sounds akin to necromancy.
All those mancies are very nasty. Okay,
Yeah.
necromancy.
Right.
Necromancy, geomancy, you name it. Okay, stay away from the mancies.
Yes.
Right. But this is what is being used. And so we should at least try to understand it so we know what's behind the quantum computing revolution in many cases, not all cases, many cases. And the people who have ulterior motives reveal themselves by their own language. Okay? So let's define artificial intelligence and machine learning. So here's the definition provided to us by John McCarthy, a computer scientist in 1955. So AI has been around for quite a long time. Quote, every aspect of learning or of any other feature of intelligence can, in principle, be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. an attempt will be made to find out how to make machines use language, form abstractions and concepts, solve kinds of problems now reserved for humans, and improve themselves. Now, you might say, oh, we haven't invented that yet. Well, yes, we have. Okay, it's right here. It's called Siri. Siri is listening to you. It is picking up on keywords. It has linked the keyword database, which you give it, to your internet profile to figure out the context of the words that you are using, that you are feeding it. Does that make sense?
Well, even the Google app will do the same thing, because you say, okay, Google, and then you ask it a question, and they'll give you the answer.
Siri, you're the devil. You're the devil.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes it definitely looks like that. Okay.
Right.
So the question is all this stuff, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, is it evil? And the answer is
no.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Some people use it.
Exactly. Okay. The internet is what we are all using right now. Okay. We're not using it for evil. We're trying to have an elevated conversation that advances us not just mentally, but spiritually. We're not watching the WWE right now. Okay?
Amen. And I never will.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there chuckling because, that stuff is just stupid. It's funny.
Right. Or to get it back more seriously here, we can also use the internet to distribute child pornography.
Boo.
Big time boo.
No.
Or any type
Right.
of pornography. The child being the most insidious right there.
Exactly. So the point is, it's a technology, it's morally neutral, it's all on how you use it. I hope that's very clear.
It is.
Yeah, it's like a gun. You can use a gun to get food, or you can use a gun to kill someone, or you can use a gun to defend yourself. People want to blame the gun, but the gun was neutral. It was the motivation of the person holding the gun that made all the difference as to how the gun was going to be used and whether it was going to be used for evil or used for good.
Yeah, a tool is a tool is a tool. Don't
Right.
use it. So.
Right. Now, there are no coincidences in the New World Order. There's no such thing as mistiming. The people behind the New World Order manage their goals by objectives. They do not care how much time it takes to achieve a goal. They do care about whether or not they can achieve that goal in totality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think it's any coincidence. Let me share my screen here. That 30 years ago, if I can find it, world reserve currency, yes, that you would have a cover like this. Okay, and this is the January 1988 cover of The Economist magazine. Now, this is a Rothschild publication through and through. If you look at who was on the board of directors for The Economist magazine, you'll see that it's Rothschild, Rothschild, Rothschild. It's even in your face here in the form of the red shield, which is in German, Rothschild, or Rothschild. It's right there. Okay?
That makes sense.
Right. So what do we see here in this artwork that's now 30 years old? Well, we see...
A phoenix.
Right. Oh, no, you're a conspiracy theorist. That's an eagle. That's America.
No.
God bless America.
And
Okay.
why is the fire there then? Right?
Exactly.
Phoenix on fire.
Right. And why is there this fleur de lis, or flower of life, or let's just say male sex organs on top of the head of this eagle?
That's a weird
Okay.
place to put that.
Yeah.
It's totally Masonic, totally sexual, but what do you expect, right? So, what is around the phoenix's neck? Well, you see 10 phoenix, which is a currency unit. Could be dollars, won, yuan, pesos. Okay. This is 10 phoenix. And what is the year on this coin? Can you see it?
2016?
Close, 2018.
Oh, I can't see
Coming
it.
up next year. Only a few days
Yeah.
away.
Holy crap, that is. I've
Yep.
seen that so many times and I never saw that.
That's right. And what is the symbol in the center of this coin? It's a 0 with a line or a 1 through it. Okay?
Almost like
In-
an infinity symbol.
Very close. Very close.
Okay.
It could be considered a quantum symbol.
Okay.
It could be considered a 3-phase electrical symbol for those of you who are in the electrical industry. Okay, you know that symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't think it's any coincidence that really a world currency, which is what they're talking about here,
That was 30 years ago, too.
30 years ago, okay, January 1988. Okay, it's January 2018 is pretty well upon us. Okay, so the third phase of money is not going to be the first phase, which is gold and silver, though it's going to contain an element of that. Okay, it's not going to be the second phase of money, which is fiat currency, which is just fancy pieces of toilet paper worth absolutely no more than monopoly money.
Like I said
Okay.
earlier, what the American dollar is worth.
That's right. It's going to be the third phase. It's going to be a cryptocurrency that is accepted by the world. Blockchain is not going to be that final standard. Bitcoin is just a warm-up act. Okay, it's destined to die. And we'll get into the reasons why Bitcoin is taking off financially. So, what is the eagle standing on top of? It's standing on top of a pile of burning paper currencies from all over the world. This is not just American cash, it's all over the world, okay? So, I don't think that it's any coincidence. Let me just go back to here. That the Rothschilds have been in charge of history to a great extent, not entirely, but to a great extent for 200 years. Okay? This is the Balfour Declaration. You can see the date at the top, November 2nd, 1917. This is a letter from Arthur James Balfour, right here on the left, to who? Dear Lord Rothschild. And what is it talking about? Well, it's talking about the following declaration of sympathy with the, quote, Jewish Zionist aspirations about a Jewish homeland in the Middle East. And so many Christians still think that Israel came up out of nowhere. It's amazing.
Always been there.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. But here's the ironic thing. Ultimately, evil is God's tool. Nailing Jesus to the cross as an innocent man was evil, but it was the only way necessary to provide salvation.
Right.
Okay, so God can use evil to fulfill his purposes, to fulfill his prophecies. So ultimately, in the end, God has the last laugh to Satan's plans. Now, the thing that gives me hope in all this doom and gloom that I keep on covering in a series of facts, not opinion, not speculation, because the world is filled with that, is the fact that evil is following Bible prophecy to the letter. All that is opposed to Bible prophecy is fulfilling Bible prophecy to the letter. Now, here is a 500-year chart as to the longevity of the world's reserve currencies. So on the bottom here, you had Portugal. Before that, you had Italy, as in the Venetian nobility. So Portugal had the world's reserve currency status from 1450 to 1530. Gentlemen, that's 80 years. Right. So then came Spain. And if you notice, there's little color bands here. That's the build-up period. And there's a color band to the right, which is the fading period. So we're not talking, oh, Portugal lost the world's reserve currency status, and then the next day came along Spain. No, there's a fade in, fade out process, okay? So then with Spain, 1530 to 1640, that was 110 years. Then the Netherlands, 1640 to 1720, that's 80 years. Then France, 1720 to 1815, that's 95 years. Then Great Britain, 1815 to 1920, that's 105 years. And then look at America, 1920 to 2030, if you're lucky. That's an estimate, but I have reason to believe that's pretty well accurate, okay? 110 years. So what's the point of this? The point of this, you're on the way out as a world's reserve currency. Okay, and
I
now
had no idea that a reserve currency went that far back.
Oh yeah,
Reserve currency went that far back.
Well, and I think a lot of things started happening. I mean, just to interject and not to get out of point, but 1913, right around when, J.P. Morgan Chase and a couple other people, including, I can't remember all of a sudden the name right now, but Jekyll Island, when they came across with the Federal Reserve.
right.
Which is a private bank, but, just one of those things where it's like, that's when the whole Federal Reserve came across right there, was when, for the United States, which originally all of the founding fathers didn't want. None of them wanted that, but they had this little confab on Jekyll Island, which is just off of Georgia, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it yeah, and secretly came up with the American Federal Reserve Bank, and got us into that, regardless of what anybody else wanted.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay, so the point is, America's dollar as the world's reserve currency is coming to an end. That's not to say that it's going to end in 2018. That means you're on the way out. Now, if you're an American, and the vast majority of my audience is American, you got to be concerned about that, because what do you think is going to happen to the purchasing power of the American dollar once other countries accelerate in the I don't want to hold U.S. dollars anymore process? Where do you think those dollars are going to go?
Well, they're probably going to get burned with a giant phoenix on top of it, with
Right.
a little male prostate thing on top of its head,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of other countries in the past, we've seen that in the 20th century, where you had to take, where it used to be like maybe a few cents to go buy a loaf of bread. It's going to be a wheelbarrow full of cash, where you have to go just to buy a loaf of bread. So it's happened in the 20th century alone.
And you're in Canada, right?
That's right.
I actually have a Canadian, well, I'm a manager where I work at, a supervisor / manager in training, blah, blah, blah. And I have a Canadian subordinate, for lack of a better word. And she was telling me, I think you guys don't even use paper money anymore.
That's right.
And she was
Our
telling
money
me-
is plastic.
Yeah, she was also saying you guys don't have pennies. And so she's
That's
like
true.
trying to count, like she's at the register trying to count money. And she's like, man, this is such a trip. I feel like America is so outdated. We don't even use paper money anymore, or pennies. Why do you guys still use pennies and paper money? I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never have thought that Canada would have had a technological edge on America, man.
Right.
But that's the way the world's heading now, is towards cashless society, and not even using pennies anymore, I guess. I guess pennies cost too much to make or something.
Well, I mean, you could even see in some of the commercials in past years, Visa and MasterCard were all making commercials about, why are you using cash anymore? You're holding up the line. Why not just swipe your card, your debit card, your credit card, or whatever? Basically type of stuff. So, I mean, that's already heading up here they're trying to gear America towards that, and I wouldn't be surprised, by 2030 we have the euro, although the euro is kind of going on its way out too, I guess, but it's just one of those things. So.
Well, to answer your question directly about the Amero, in my opinion, it's just an opinion, I don't believe we will have the Amero. We will have a blockchain-based central bank or regional bank issued currency.
And back onto Bitcoin and blockchain, I guess the whole point of blockchain and Bitcoin being together is because if you have Bitcoin as a quote-unquote Bitcoin as a predominant cash, even though if you have one you have like $17,000 or whatever, if it's on a blockchain, then it's not forgeable. Would that be? It would be extremely hard to forge a Bitcoin if it's tracked on a blockchain. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's actually more complicated than that. There's a couple things which give Bitcoin a perceived value. Notice I use the word perceived.
Right.
Okay. Number one, there's only a fixed amount of Bitcoin ever. Okay. You can't make more than what was initially offered.
And how much is that?
I believe it's 21 million. Don't quote that off the top of my head because I am going off the top of my head. But the point is, it's a fixed number.
Right.
And also on that note, Catherine Austin Fitts, who was the assistant secretary, financial secretary under President Reagan, has recently uncovered the fact that the total bankster bailout starting in 2008 has amounted to about $29 trillion, plus $8.5 trillion has gone, quote unquote, missing from the Pentagon. It's just a coincidence that the plane that struck the Pentagon happened to strike the accounting division, which coincidentally was the only part of the Pentagon that was receiving impact-resistant building upgrades, including 2-inch thick bulletproof glass. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Okay?
Well, there are no coincidences with the NWO, Mr. Ulrich.
Right?
That's right. And it's just the coincidence that Scotiabank was holding its gold and silver in the basement vaults below World Trade Centers 1 and 2. Again, I could go on and on about the financial coincidences. Oh, yeah. There was a truck that got stuck, literally, in the falling basement floors that literally had a trail of gold bars behind the truck. And when a World Trade Center post-collapse photographer who was paid, who had clearance to document the event and shoot thousands of photographs, got near this truck, all of a sudden guys with machine guns were pointing guns at them or at him. So it's amazing what kind of coincidences occur.
Yeah,
okay.
And that's the fuel for all the conspiracy theories about America, doing its own terrorist act on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon.
Right.
Oh, come
okay.
on. We know Osama bin Laden did that.
Right.
Yeah. Which is why, coincidentally, the brother of Osama bin Laden happened to meet George H.W. Bush in Washington on the morning of the attack as part of the Carlyle Investment Group meeting. Yeah. And it's just another coincidence that Osama bin Laden was on the board of directors for Iridium Satellite. Yeah.
Wow.
But
I had not
heard
that. I had heard that George H.W. Bush was in cahoots with his uncle for years in the oil industry, and I actually went and checked on that and found the documentation saying that he actually had struck business deals with his oil company, with Osama bin Laden's uncle's oil company.
It's very close. It was actually Osama bin Laden's father.
Oh, I did not know that was that.
Yes.
Mr. Bin Laden.
And Mr. bin Laden, Salim bin Laden, I believe, And the name of the oil company that the two of these families created was called Arbusto Oil, which in slang Mexican means little bush.
Man, this is a holy crap.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, W is everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why the Bush family has a several thousand acre retreat in the middle of nowhere, South America. But if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, there's a whole ulterior explanation to that, and we won't go down that rabbit hole.
Does it have
Well, we might.
Hitler and the Nazis? I'm just
Well,
kidding.
well, that's where I was going. It's like, did they build a
Actually,
whole retreat down in Brazil or somewhere down there?
Actually, yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I was kidding.
Right. And
No.
No, they did that. They had this whole thing along the beach built already before the end of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, well, we've got about half an hour left, right around there. Let's keep moving along.
Right.
Yeah, we have to move along. Okay.
Yeah, it's like,
So here's another question. First of all, Bitcoin is the dominant cryptocurrency. It's kind of unfair to say Bitcoin instead of cryptocurrency, just as it is kind of unfair to say Kleenex instead of tissue. Kleenex is just a brand name of tissue. The name Kleenex dominates the tissue market, so that's why everyone calls it Kleenex. No, it's just tissue, okay? So Bitcoin dominates the cryptocurrency market. It's got about half the market value of all 1,200 plus cryptocurrencies out there. New ones are being made all the time. And Bitcoin will not be the way of the future because the maximum transaction speed of Bitcoin is about 6 to 7 transactions per second. Good luck making a global economy at that speed. So, just like the horseless carriage, it would be very foolish of me to say that this or that particular cryptocurrency or blockchain language or blockchain platform is going to be the standard. I mean, think about the automobile industry. You had those Germans in the 1880s coming up with a horseless carriage that could go maybe 20 feet before blowing up. That's how the car industry started. And then other standards like the Model T came along 20, 30 years later. That's where we are in terms of the cryptocurrency AI revolution. The point is, the genie's out of the bottle. We're not going back in time. So, a question that comes up is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence an op? Is it an inside job? I have to say, yes, it is. Okay? Roughly half of all the Bitcoin out there is owned by 1% of all Bitcoin holders. In other words, that's monopoly holding. At any time, this 50% ownership could declare to sell, and then there would be a panic in the Bitcoin market. Everyone would sell, right? Okay, so just be aware of facts like that. Then there are NSA white papers called How to Make a Mint, the Cryptocurrency Revolution, which was issued, going off the top of my head, about 2003, if I'm not mistaken, before any cryptocurrency was ever made.
Yeah, I was going to say that nobody was even talking about cryptocurrency back then.
That's right. Now, let me give you another fact. Again, you have to consider this whole complex, interrelated subject from dozens of different angles. I get so sick and tired of people trying to paint this in either a good or an evil situation. It doesn't work that way. Okay, you've got interrelated technologies, hundreds of partners and players. Some of these partners are good, some of these partners are bad, period. So there's a whole 50 shades of gray out there, okay?
That was a great movie. Just kidding.
Well,
Just kidding.
it's not a movie I'm going to see. Thank you very much.
I've never seen it.
No.
You got issues, bro. Just joking.
Okay, so I'm going to go and share my screen once again. And we are going to go to singularity.net. Did I type it in right? Yes, I did. Okay, so you will instantly see why we are going here. Singularity.net, the token sale is closed. Full cap reached. Thank you for your support. We will share details shortly. In other words, Singularity.net has created its own artificial intelligence-based blockchain tech cryptocurrency. Now it gets more and more intense. Okay, here we go.
Centralized marketplace for AI, huh?
Correct. What Singularity wants to do is create the mother of all cryptocurrencies. So let's just read their short little preface here. The future will be run on AI. Well, that's true. Singularity.net lets anyone monetize artificial intelligence, allowing companies, organizations, and developers buy and sell artificial intelligence at scale. From the creators of Sophia the robot.
Oh, wow.
You can't make this up. Okay? Keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, look. The mind of Sophia lives in Singularity.net. Wow. Now, who created Sophia? Well, people like Dr. Ben Goertzel. This guy, according to my educational background, probably has an IQ in the range of 160 to 180. Now, how do I know that? Again, I have administered IQ tests. This is just my professional opinion. If you watch YouTube videos of this guy, Dr. Ben Goertzel, you can see that he's almost like Raymond in the movie Rain Man. Okay, he's just clumsy, but he's got a 160 to 180 IQ. He dresses like he's 14 years old when he's talking to billionaire investors. It's ridiculous. He also graduated with a Master's of Science at age 14.
Oh, wow. Well, that's typical. No.
Right. Now, who else is on the board of directors here at Hanson Robotics? Well, it's Sophia Hansen, chief humanoid.
Yeah, the first robot citizen, I believe. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. Now, doesn't Sophia Hansen, with her computerized transparent head, look a lot like the female robot from the movie Ex Machina?
Oh, that's who she... Yeah, she totally does, yeah.
Ex Machina.
That's right. Okay.
Yes.
Now, nothing is coincidental here. You've got the blockchain team here. So the same people who brought you Sophia Hansen, the world's first intelligent robot, are now trying to bring you the mother of all cryptocurrencies based on artificial intelligence. Gentlemen, do you see how everything comes together? Okay, let me try to back out here.
That's crazy. You literally have blockchain and you have cryptocurrency on the same page.
Right, as artificial intelligence, as demonstrated by Sophia. Now, the word Sophia comes from Greek meaning knowledge or wisdom.
Sophos, yeah.
Sophos, yeah. Right. And again, there's no such thing as coincidences. It was Sophia that was brought out on stage in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and her appearance was promoted to Saudi Arabia's 1,500 to 2,000 princelings, each of which is a multi-billionaire. And so all of these princelings, these billionaire princelings in Saudi Arabia, are there at the Marriott 5-star hotel to watch Sophia, okay? That was the honeypot that MBS or Mohammed bin Salman the newly self-installed American puppet dictator of Saudi Arabia used to quarantine all these billionaire princes in that hotel. And if you want to leave that hotel alive, ordered all these billionaire princelings to give him 70% of their wealth. Are you getting this?
Wow.
That's right. A couple of these princelings have already been killed in a most public fashion. As in, you leave these princelings hanging upside down by their feet, and after about a day or two, your feet start getting gangrenous because they have no circulation, and I could go on, but you get the idea, okay? Why is this happening? It's happening because Saudi Arabia is slowly running out of oil. This can't keep going on forever.
Right.
Which is exactly why you've got all this tension in Western Syria with quote-unquote ISIS, which is just simply Al-Qaeda repackaged.
That makes sense.
Right. So everything is interrelated. Okay, Saudi Arabia, Syria. Okay, the question is, where are we going to get the petroleum from to feed Western markets like Europe?
I had never actually even thought about that.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, let me tell you why Sophia, the artificial intelligence robot, was given citizenship by Saudi Arabia, of all places.
Hello, everybody, and that is where we're going to end this podcast today. We actually have episode 2 coming up, or part 2, of our interview with Leonard Ulrich, which I decided to end on this note. Number one, because I think it's an awesome cliffhanger. You find out exactly why they were trying so hard to make Sophia an actual robot citizen. There's actually a very hilarious reason behind that, and you'll find that out in part 2. And also, I am finding out more and more that people dislike long podcasts, which Devil's Been Talking Radio definitely is a longer podcast than your average one. And by in part, that's actually inspired by another podcast named Canary Cry Radio, where they tend to do, podcasts about the length that we do. So I'm trying to shorten it up a little bit here. And also, I want everybody to be able to hear this full entire interview without getting tired of it or just letting it drone in the background. So I decided to cut this in half the best that I could so that you guys could actually enjoy this podcast in its full entirety. Also, the other reason why I have decided to end it right here is because of the fact that after the first of the year, me and Samantha Hunt will be hosting another podcast called Devil's Been Talking Quickcast, and it will be a midweek podcast, 35 minutes long, no longer than that. It's not going to have many of the things that we've got for our normal podcast, our Sunday podcast. And the reason being is when I first started, if you go back and listen to, which I'm sorry if you've listened to our first episodes, we try to do, news segments and all that stuff where we talk about things going on. And, well, our podcast kind of morphed into a interview platform podcast. And, well, one of the things that I wanted to do was talk about technology, talk about current news and things like that, alternative news, conspiracy news, things like that. And, well, we haven't been able to do that. And so I've been really praying about how to approach that. And to be honest with you, the thought of just kind of shutting down Devil's Been Talking Radio had been crossing my mind. And the reason being is because there's so much work involved in doing it, and it takes up a good portion of my life. And I'm a married man now with kids. I also work a full-time job, and I serve in my church pretty regularly. And also, Chuck does the same thing. He's got a full-time job, and for a while there, he was serving at Calvary Chapel, and we're both pretty busy. But the more I prayed about it, the more I felt like God was like, no, work harder. And also, another thing is, our podcast just wasn't growing to my desired rates. So and also we still don't know what we're doing. I mean, we've been doing stuff and we've learned a few things here and there, but how to interview guests, sometimes I feel like we fall flat on that. Establishing relationships with guests and stuff like that, it's just, I mean, we're kind of learning as we go, and sometimes it's quite embarrassing for me, and I'm just like, I wish I could do better there. So just things like that, where it's just kind of like my Debbie Downer spirit comes in, and I'm like, I just want to give up. But I felt like God was like, no, I want you to try harder, and I want you to apply yourself even more, because it's my desire to do this for a living, not do my full-time job for a living. It's my desire to get involved in ministry, which I am doing this, but I want to make a living doing this. I don't want to make a living being somebody else's employee, excuse me. So I just kind of felt like God was like, hey, you know what? I want you to try harder. And so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to do this 35-minute news segment during the week, where we talk about current events, conspiracy theory, news, and alternative media press, and things like that. We're going to cover like 3 or 4 topics, and it'll be no longer than 35 minutes. I'm going to be timing it, and that's it. And it's going to be done once a week on top of our normal podcast. And if I hadn't figured out a way to edit quicker and make this podcast so that I can edit it in like 45 minutes instead of taking a normal 3 to 4 hours like I do with our normal Sunday podcast, I wouldn't be doing it. But it's going to be accomplishing something that I really want to do, which is talk about current events, stay in the loop on alternative press, conspiracy news, stuff like that. And it's an additional thing for you. And also, we're getting to put more episodes out there, so I'm pretty excited about that. So because of that, me and Sam Hunt were supposed to do a quick cast this upcoming Tuesday, but she's got things going on, and so instead I decided to release on the same day part 2 of this Leonard Ulrich interview. So I'm hoping you guys will enjoy that. And another thing that I wanted to mention real quick is if you haven't already, please subscribe and leave a rating and review for our podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher, or both, if you have both, whatever you want to do. Also, please be in touch with us. Email us at chuckatdbtr@gmail.com. And also, if you haven't, like our Facebook page, as that helps us out immensely, helps advertise us more. Doing all of that helps advertise us more, get us out to the masses, and get more unknowing but yet desiring possible listening ears to our show. In the meantime, guys, when you're listening to all this, don't forget to ask yourself, who are you listening to?